Hello and welcome to Talking Points here on France 24. The Tour de France is over and the verdict is in. This is the third victory for Spain's Alberto Contador. We had a suspense to the very end and no doping cases for now. So after years of controversy, is the Tour de France finally on the road to redemption? To talk about it today are two journalists who followed the race day to day and have been on the tour this year. Philippe Turle, a journalist with Radio France Internationale. Hello and welcome.
Hello.
And Gregor Braun, a freelance journalist with Cycle Sports. So Philippe, I believe this was your 9th Tour de France. Was it the best you've seen in many years?
It was certainly, let's say, one of the most interesting. I'm not sure it was the best. It could have been more exciting, I think. I think that there was a time when we got a little bit bored with the constant rumours that there was going to be a fight between Alberto Contador and Andy Schleck in the Pyrenees, and that Andy Schleck was going to beat Alberto Contador and take the yellow jersey, and that fight, those attacks that everyone was waiting for by both riders never really materialised. So for at least 4 or 5 days, everyone was saying it's going to happen tomorrow, it's going to happen soon, it's going to happen in the Pyrenees, and at the end of the day, I think everyone came to the conclusion that both Andy Schleck and Alberto Contador were as strong as each other, and neither could really launch a strong enough attack to be able to gain extra seconds over the other and win the yellow jersey. But it was a good Tour de France. There were some very pretty stages. We had the pavé, the cobblestones in the north of France. There was the heat, of course, in this Tour de France, which was, I think, the hottest Tour de France that I've done, especially in the Alps, and this double ascension of the Mont Ventoux, the mythical Tour de France peak that was featured twice this year for the first time ever to celebrate 100 years of the Tour de France in the Pyrenees.
Gregor Braun, we've had for many years the domination of Lance Armstrong. We've had some controversy. Now, at least we had a rivalry. Maybe, as Philippe was saying, people were expecting more offense and so on, but at least there was suspense, and that's good for the race, it seems.
Yes, I mean, the battle between Alberto Contador and Andy Schleck is a good battle. It shows the emergence of two of cycling's future stars. However, it was such a close battle that it ended up canceling out a true battle, and it gave us essentially at the last stage of the Tourmalet, a bit of a boring stage.
But I mean, at least, in this stage where Andy Schleck was to go on the offensive, he did. He just was not able to win over Alberto Contador, but at least he tried. So people, as you are saying, well, maybe they should have done more, but at least they seem to have tried now.
Well, I think what has changed this year compared to maybe the Armstrong years between 1999 and 2005, when he won 7 Tour de France's in a row, was that in the first couple of years, everyone was saying, will Armstrong win again? And by about the third victory, people were saying, well, Armstrong will probably win again. Let's see who might be second. And Armstrong had this very dominating role over the Tour, maybe even a sort of despotic reign over the Tour for the years that he won from 1999 to 2005. And it's a much more open race now. There was suspense, let's say, right up until the final stage between Bordeaux and Pauillac to see whether or not Andy Schleck could beat Alberto Contador. And during the time when Armstrong was leading the race, such, I think, a battle or such a question could not have been posed, because everyone knew right from the start that Lance Armstrong was going to win the Tour de France. It was a fait accompli, as they say in French. Whereas since then, it's been a much more open race, and that has made it, let's say, slightly more exciting.
I mentioned doping. As I said, well, we have to wait, obviously, because there have been instances in the past where the tests have come out much later than the Tour. But do you think it was a cleaner race? And this may explain why maybe there are not such huge differences as in the past.
Well, they say that the Tour de France isn't truly over until like the end of September, when all the testing's finished. But yeah, I think we saw that in the Giro d'Italia earlier this year, and we're seeing it here at the Tour de France. We get this racing that it's closely fought. We see escapes going free that maybe wouldn't go in the old days, only 3 or 4 years ago. And yeah, it looks like a cleaner race, if we can say.
I think also the tests have become much more stringent, and the cyclists know that they're walking a very fine line if they're even thinking about using illicit substances that they're not allowed to use. Whereas in the past, maybe people would have said, well, maybe I might be able to get away with it. There might be a chance that I might not be noticed. There may be less strict control. Since the Tour de France of 2007, which began in the UK, where Alexander Vinokourov was kicked out, where Mikael Rasmussen was also kicked out while he had the yellow jersey. And it was a complete disaster, not only for the Tour de France, for the cyclists involved, for the management of the Tour de France and the whole image of the Tour de France. There's been a huge effort since then, I think, to make the Tour de France cleaner, to make everyone understand that there are stricter controls. Like, for example, this year for the first time there were controls of the bikes through X-rays to make sure there weren't little electronic motors inside so that they could go more quickly. That was something
which was a result of a recent controversy, right? Electric doping, some called it. There were suspicions that a rider had used one of those bikes in a recent race. I mean,
it came out in the Giro d'Italia. It came out because Italian television showed a motorized bike, and then through the power of the internet, through the power of YouTube, somebody posted a video of insinuating that Cancellara had used a motorized bike for his Tour Flanders and his Paris-Roubaix victories. And so, in fact, there's a federal investigation going on this subject in Italy, because sport is something that you can gamble on in Italy, so it's sporting fraud in a sense, and so they're going after motorized doping in Italy. But yeah, well, it is. They're doing much more testing now, and the riders are afraid of cheating in any way.
I think, in the past there would have been people, riders saying, if I can just win a stage or I can just improve my overall rating, maybe I'll take something to do it. Now they obviously know that there's a very strong chance that they may be caught, and I think a lot of riders are thinking twice about getting involved in doping, because it not only brings down your own reputation, it brings down the reputation of cycling, it brings down the reputation of the Tour de France. And the management of the Tour de France has made it clear that it will not stand for any type of cheating in the race. So I think it's a long-term process. It won't happen in one race, but I think in a long-term situation that's going to improve. And it has to be said also that cycling is one of the sports which is the most controlled when it comes to doping, and I think one of the sport that is most considered involved in doping, where I think doping is maybe much more widespread than a lot of people think.
Right. I mentioned Lance Armstrong. Was it the race he shouldn't have run?
It was one too many.
He finished, I don't know what stage, but like
58th or
58th,
something.
I mean, very far from.
And the time trial, I think 58th, and then around 25th. Yeah. The final time trial.
He should have stayed in Texas this year.
Yeah, he should have stayed in
Why
Texas.
did he come then? He really thought he could win?
This year I believe was for Radio Shack, to give Radio Shack, which has a 2-year program, to give Radio Shack his team a head start in cycling. That was his reason.
So more of a marketing operation than really a sportsing.
Yeah, to help out his old buddy Johan Brunel and to get the team going. And then also, I think he truly believed that after his third place last year, golly, with another year of training, and maybe I can win the Tour de France. But yeah, it was one too many.
There is one thing about Lance Armstrong, which did come out this year, is that during the time he was on the Tour de France and winning consecutively for 7 years, it was very difficult to actually get close to Lance Armstrong, to interview him. There was a certain arrogance concerning his team management. For example, you couldn't talk to him directly as a journalist. You had to interview his press attaché, who would talk for Lance Armstrong outside the press conferences that he had to hold obligatorily when he won a stage. It led to a sort of not a very nice feeling on the tour. This time round, he's become more friendly, a bit more accessible to the press. I think he realised after he'd had a disastrous stage over the cobblestones in northern France that it was over for him in the Tour de France this year. So he was just going to enjoy himself and ride peacefully until Paris, and maybe look back and savour the fact that this was his last tour, and maybe he should be a bit more friendly, which he was. Whether he'll be missed or not, I don't know. What is good for him is that at least at the end of the day his team was best team, so he did get to be on the podium in Paris.
Just to go back to this year's rivalry, there was an incident in a stage where Andy Schleck went on the attack, derailed, and Contador went on the offense, won around 30 seconds.
39 seconds.
39 seconds, which turns out to be the exact difference between them at the end of the tour. There was a controversy whether Contador took advantage of such an incident to effectively win the Tour de France, or if this was fair play. What's your take on this?
Well, I was talking to ex-French cyclist Cedric Vasseur about this yesterday, and he pointed out that they wouldn't do this in Formula One. If somebody has a motor that breaks in the race goes on. And you look at cycling, you have all these fans watching the race. On the last climb before the finish, if you stop the race at that point, is that true to the sport? Is it true to the fans out there watching? This is a mechanical, and maybe Andy Schleck, maybe the team should have selected better material that had been up to the test.
I mean, no one was asking for the race to be stopped. Maybe people were saying Contador maybe should have waited for Andy Schleck to get back on the bike. I mean, was this an argument, or I mean, is this racing?
I asked two former French champions, Bernard Thévenet and Bernard Hinault, who both won Tour de France, what they thought, and they both said no. They both said he should have carried on for two reasons. First one is that Contador may not have known what had happened, and maybe even his team manager didn't tell him. Just saying carry on because
they
he
have
wanted him to win.
earpieces,
They have earpieces,
so they know.
And the second reason was that he didn't crash. If he'd crashed, then Contador should have waited. But as Andy Schleck didn't crash, and it was a fault of the material, he didn't know if it was the fault of the material, whether it was the way Andy Schleck was riding the bike that caused the chain to come off. There are a lot of questions that were unclear. So they both said no, he should have carried on, and it was perfectly normal that he did that.
I think it was a bit interesting because, helping Contador on the descent to the finish line to gain those 39 seconds was Samuel Sanchez, who Contador helped win the Olympic medal, 2 years ago. A little bit of a Spanish coup there, maybe. I think Contador knew, and I also think he had the right to go ahead and race, not wait.
Right, and in any case, Andy Schleck didn't seem to be angry at him and said it was fine.
Well, he was a bit angry afterwards, but the other thing which is important is that when a chain comes off, normally it's quite a quick repair, and Contador knows that, and this actually did take more time to repair. Contador couldn't have known that it was going to take more time because usually it's the thing that does happen, and the backup team knows how to repair a wheel quite quickly.
Right. Just quickly, do you think this will be the rivalry we'll see next year and in the years to come on the Tour de France?
Yes, I think Andy Schleck and Alberto Contador are the two clear leaders coming up. So we're going to be looking at more years of these battles between the two. And before the Tour de France, everybody was talking about Andy Schleck and Alberto Contador. There was no surprise that these guys were the two favorites. Yeah.
I think maybe Alberto Contador will. I think he rode a little bit less well this year than last year. I think Andy Schleck is riding slightly better. It might make for a more interesting clash next year. And I think Andy Schleck, if his brother Frank is back in the race with him all the way to the end, will also be in a stronger position than he was this year when his brother crashed out in stage 3. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you will be both on the Tour de France next year,
yes.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Thank you very much to both of you, and thank you for watching Talking Points on France 24.